Hi, I'm Bernadette Rogoff, the Director of Collections for the Monmouth County Historical Association, and today we're sitting in Marlpit Hall, right along Kings Highway in Middletown, Monmouth County, New Jersey. The house was built about 1762, and in 1771 it was purchased by Edward Taylor. Edward Taylor's story is fascinating because so often in my career, when I've talked to people, everybody wants to be a patriot. I think sometimes to myself, maybe I would be a patriot too. I would have chosen that route. But would we really? And when the American Revolution came knocking, Edward had to decide which side to pick. At first, we think that he was somewhat leaning towards the patriot cause. In fact, he actually sent money to those in Boston who were suffering under British rule at that point. But at some point, his son George Taylor became a captain in a local British militia unit, and that seems to have pulled Edward back towards the side of the Loyalists. For a while, Edward seems to have been telling information about Continental troop movements and local patriot militia movement to his son George, and that's technically spying. And fortunately, the people in Middletown were a little bit more laid back than other colonies, and Edward was told he had to stop that behavior. Edward did not, and Taylor continued to tell his son George about different troop movements and plans, at which point local Middletown residents had enough. And so after complaining to the New Jersey Assembly, Edward Taylor was placed under house arrest in 1777. And he basically spent the rest of the war here in these walls at Marlpit Hall. As far as we know, he didn't keep a journal or a diary, but we do have remaining records that he sent from time to time to the New Jersey Assembly, trying to explain what a hardship it was. These letters are really fascinating. They do show his desperation and agitation, and they also contain the single reference to the enslaved men and women who were also living in the house at that time. And in one letter, Taylor describes the fact that he can't go to his grist mill, which we believe was located about 2 to 3 miles northwest of Marlpit Hall, because the only people he had to send there were the quote-unquote servants of his house, and he didn't trust them to work for his own interests. So right now we're standing in the loft right above the kitchen, and we know this was the space where many of the enslaved within the Taylor family household lived. We have an excellent estate inventory from John Taylor, Edward's third son, who inherited the property. And a good estate inventory literally helps you walk through the house. And if you know the house itself, then you know what was in each room. So we know that this room was filled with some small bedsteads, what were known as bedrolls, which we today would recognize almost as a futon type of sleeping accoutrement. Some old quilts, odds and ends, broken chairs, things of that nature. It would have been brutally hot in the summertime and absolutely freezing in the wintertime, particularly in the summer when it was too hot to be up here. A lot of times the enslaved might bring their bedrolls downstairs and sleep in the kitchen. This was really the work portion of the house. We don't know how often someone like Edward Taylor might have been here. He might never really have made an appearance here. But what we do know is that the enslaved tried to make this space their own. And they might have had a few small possessions, personal possessions, some clothing items, maybe a keepsake or two, a comb, perhaps a mirror. But another thing that they did was they took shards, which are pieces of broken ceramic. And of course, if you break a plate or something, who is going to be the one sweeping these things up? but one of the enslaved within the household. And if it was blue and white, they would keep it and maybe tuck it into a pocket. And then later on, when they were in this space, they would find someplace close to a passageway, a chimney, a door, a hearth, a window, and they would secret it under the floorboards. This was in the nature of a West African religious practice. Blue and white were very powerful spiritual colors and connected this world to the spirit world. And even though here in New Jersey, a lot of the enslaved had never come from Africa, they were still handing down these religious and faith-based practices and used it for internal strength and resistance. Edward himself died without knowing the end of the story. So to him, he presents this very interesting alternate. We have other 18th century houses, and all of those were owned and lived in during the American Revolution by those who chose the patriot path. This is the one house that stands as the example of what a lot of reasonable, good people were choosing, and that was the side of loyalty to Great Britain.